There's a moment every Sigma Empath reaches when something inside them quietly changes. You've spent your whole life feeling everything, everyone, their tension, their sadness, their fear. You've carried it like it was your own, believing that empathy meant responsibility. But one day you wake up and realize you're tired, not from caring, but from absorbing. That's when the shift begins. The moment you stop carrying energy that was never yours to hold. You start noticing it first in silence. The same noise that used to overwhelm you no longer penetrates your calm. You still feel deeply, but differently. You witness emotions now instead of drowning in them. That's emotional evolution. That's awareness. You've learned that being an empath doesn't mean being an emotional sponge. It means knowing when to filter what you feel. People will notice the difference. You'll seem quieter, calmer, harder to read. They might say you've changed, but what they're really feeling is your boundary. You're no longer available for emotional chaos. You still care, but from a distance that protects your peace. And that distance isn't cold, it's sacred. It's what happens when an empath becomes self-aware. This is the energy shift that turns empathy into power, when your peace matters more than pleasing, when your compassion no longer requires exhaustion, when you realize that not everyone's pain is your purpose to heal. That's the birth of the Sigma Empath, calm, grounded, unshakable. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to Brainy Empath, where we dive into the hidden psychology, emotional intelligence, and spiritual depth behind empath evolution and self-mastery. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever reached that point where you stopped absorbing everyone's emotions and finally felt free in your own energy again? Comment energy shift below if you've ever learned that protecting your peace isn't selfish, it's survival. They realize empathy without boundaries leads to exhaustion, not connection. For most of their life, they believed empathy was about feeling everything, every tear, every heartbreak, every unspoken pain around them. They carried it all like emotional gravity. They thought that was love, that being the strong, understanding one made them special. But over time, the weight became too heavy. The constant emotional noise, the draining conversations, the invisible expectations, it all started to break them from the inside. That's when the truth finally hit. Empathy without boundaries doesn't build connection, it builds exhaustion. They start noticing how often they feel tired after being around others, how their peace evaporates in rooms full of emotional chaos, how they keep fixing, comforting, explaining, but no one ever asks if they're okay. They realize that they've mistaken self-sacrifice for kindness, that being available for everyone has left them unavailable for themselves. And the moment that realization settles in, everything changes. They stop blaming themselves for feeling drained. They start understanding that energy isn't infinite, it needs direction. They begin to see that compassion without boundaries isn't noble, it's self-destructive. Because when you absorb everyone's pain, you stop hearing your own truth. You become a mirror for others, but invisible to yourself. That's not empathy, that's emotional burnout disguised as love. So they start pulling back, not to become cold, but to become clear. They listen without absorbing, they help without carrying, they feel without losing themselves in the feeling. For the first time, they realize that saying no can be the most loving thing they ever do. Because boundaries aren't walls, they're filters. They let love in, but keep chaos out. The exhaustion fades slowly, replaced by calm awareness. The world still feels heavy, but they're no longer sinking in it. Their empathy becomes grounded, strong, centered, and intentional. They give when it matters, not just when it's asked for. They understand that protecting their energy doesn't make them less caring, it makes their care sustainable. That's the shift, from emotional sponge to emotional guide, from drained to discerning, from carrying everyone's pain to walking in peace with their own. And once that boundary is built, there's no going back. They stop confusing compassion with responsibility for other people's pain. For the longest time, they believed that caring meant carrying. Every time someone cried, they felt it in their chest. Every time someone broke, they tried to hold the pieces together, even when those pieces weren't theirs to fix. They thought compassion meant stepping into the fire with others, no matter how much it burned. But eventually, they realized something crucial. Empathy doesn't mean responsibility. Feeling someone's pain doesn't mean you're meant to heal it. This realization hits hard, the kind that rewires how they see relationships. They begin to understand that true compassion isn't about saving people, it's about seeing them, supporting them without losing yourself in their struggle. Because every time they tried to fix someone, they were taking on emotions that didn't belong to them. They weren't helping, they were absorbing. And that's what kept them drained, anxious, and emotionally overextended. Now, they approach pain differently, they listen, but they don't internalize, they care, but they don't carry. They understand that everyone has their own emotional path to walk, and taking responsibility for another's pain doesn't lighten it, it multiplies it. The most loving thing you can do sometimes is to let people feel their own lessons. The shift doesn't make them colder, it makes them wiser. They no longer mistake guilt for empathy. They stop saying yes to every emotional demand just to avoid disappointing someone. They stop playing healer for people who never take steps toward their own healing. Their compassion becomes clean, no longer rooted in obligation, but in awareness. When someone comes to them now, they offer understanding, not rescue. They hold space, not burdens. And that subtle shift changes everything. Their relationships become lighter, their mind calmer, their energy finally their own again. Because real compassion empowers others, it doesn't deplete you. And when they learn that, they stop feeling guilty for choosing peace. They stop apologizing for protecting their energy, because the moment they separate compassion from responsibility, they reclaim their emotional freedom. They still care deeply, they just finally understand that love isn't about losing yourself to save someone else. It's about standing strong enough to let others rise on their own. They learn to feel energy without absorbing it. Observation replaces absorption. They used to walk into a room and instantly feel everything. Tension like static, sadness like weight, fake smiles like noise. Every shift in energy went straight into their body, as if their heart had no filter. It was both a gift and a curse. Their intuition was razor sharp, but it came with a price: emotional exhaustion. But then something changed. One day, they realized they could still sense everything without taking it. That's when their empathy evolved from reaction to observation. This is the turning point, when they stop being emotional sponges and start becoming emotional observers. They still feel deeply, but now there's space between what they sense and what they keep. When someone walks in angry, they no longer absorb that chaos, they simply notice it. When someone hides pain behind a smile, they see it clearly, but they don't make it their responsibility to fix. Observation gives them power. Absorption took it away. The difference is subtle but life-changing. When you absorb energy, it owns you. When you observe it, you understand it, and understanding gives you control. They start noticing how peaceful it feels to simply witness emotions without drowning in them. They can sit in chaos and still stay calm. They can listen to pain and still stay grounded. That's emotional mastery, empathy without erosion. Their stillness starts to confuse people. Others expect them to react the way they used to take on the mood of the room, to carry what's not theirs. But instead, they stay centered. The same sensitivity that once drained them now becomes their strength. Because when you can read energy without being consumed by it, you move through the world like water. Adaptive, clear, untouchable. Now, every emotion they encounter becomes information, not identity. They read it, respect it, and release it. Their empathy becomes conscious, directed, intelligent, and calm. They no longer live at the mercy of emotional waves. They've learned how to surf them. That's the quiet evolution of a Sigma Empath, when sensitivity turns into strength and awareness replaces absorption. They don't stop feeling, they just stop carrying. And in that shift, they find the peace they were always meant to protect. They start protecting their peace instead of proving their kindness. They used to measure their worth by how much they gave, always showing up, always saying yes, always being the kind one, even when it cost them sleep, sanity, and self-respect. Every time someone needed comfort, they were there, even when no one was there for them. But one day they realized something: kindness without boundaries isn't kindness, it's self-abandonment. So they stopped proving they were good people and started protecting their peace instead. The shift is quiet but powerful. They no longer rush to please, no longer explain their empathy to those who exploit it. They've learned that peace doesn't need to be justified, it needs to be guarded. Protecting it means walking away from drama, even if it makes others uncomfortable. It means saying no without guilt. It means valuing stillness more than approval. This doesn't make them colder, it makes them whole. Because when your energy is constantly spent proving your kindness, you forget that peace is the foundation of compassion. You can't pour calm into chaos, you can't give light when your flame keeps burning out. Protecting peace doesn't mean you stop caring, it means you start caring consciously. People will notice the change, they'll say you've changed, and they're right, you have. You've stopped being emotionally available to those who only take. You've stopped feeling obligated to explain your boundaries. The same empathy that once left you drained now fuels your calm, because peace, once you've found it, becomes sacred, and you don't trade sacred things for validation. Now your kindness is quieter, but stronger. You give because you choose to, not because you're expected to. You listen without absorbing, help without overextending, and love without losing yourself. And in that balance, you discover something rare, peace that doesn't depend on anyone else. That's the evolution of the Sigma Empath, when kindness matures into clarity and peace becomes the ultimate act of self-respect. Because proving your heart exhausts you, but protecting your peace heals you. They become selective about who gets emotional access to them. They used to let everyone in, open heart, open energy, open door. Anyone who needed understanding found it in them. Anyone who needed comfort knew where to go. But after enough heartbreaks, betrayals, and one-sided connections, they learned the truth. Not everyone deserves emotional access. Their empathy is sacred, and it's time they started treating it that way. They begin to notice the difference between people who value their presence and those who use it, between those who come to share energy and those who come to drain it. Every conversation, every interaction becomes a test, not of judgment, but of alignment. They no longer confuse emotional intensity with emotional depth. Just because someone needs them doesn't mean they're meant to stay. This shift feels powerful and peaceful. They no longer rush to fix, to heal, or to save. Instead, they observe. They take their time before opening up because they know what it costs to give too much too soon. Their energy becomes private currency, and access to it must be earned, not through words, but through consistency, effort, and respect. And as they pull their energy back from the wrong people, something beautiful happens. They finally have space for themselves. Their thoughts become clearer, their emotions lighter, their intuition sharper. They start realizing that the reason they were always tired wasn't because they cared too much, it was because they cared for too many who didn't care back. Now they guard their energy like it's sacred, because it is. They understand that being selective isn't selfish, it's self-respect. They no longer let people's moods dictate their peace. They no longer apologize for choosing solitude over shallow company. And the ones who truly see them, they'll feel the difference. The connection will be mutual, calm, real. Because when an empath becomes selective, they stop being an open book for the world to read and become a quiet mystery for the right souls to discover. They no longer give emotional access to anyone who knocks. They open the door only to those who knock with intention. And that's how their energy finally becomes what it was always meant to be: rare, respected, and fully their own. They ground themselves in solitude, turning empathy inward for healing. For most of their life, their energy was directed outward, feeling for others, helping others, healing others. But one day, the noise became too much. Too many emotions, too many expectations, too many invisible cords pulling them in every direction. That's when they finally did something rare. They went silent. They stepped back from the world, not to escape it, but to return to themselves. Solitude became their medicine. In the quiet, something shifts. Without the emotional static of other people's pain, they can finally hear their own voice again. The constant overthinking fades. The guilt of not doing enough disappears. What's left is stillness. And in that stillness, healing begins. They start realizing that empathy doesn't have to mean outward motion. It can flow inward too. The same compassion they used to give to everyone else, they now offer to themselves. But they sit with their own emotions without running from them. They listen to their body, their intuition, their breath, the peace they used to create for others. They now build it within. And in that solitude, they find something they didn't know they were missing: grounding, the kind that doesn't depend on anyone's presence, the kind that can't be shaken by other people's storms. It's in this space that they recharge their power. They stop feeling guilty for needing distance. They stop apologizing for disappearing. They understand now that isolation isn't emptiness, it's alignment. Every moment spent alone sharpens their clarity, restores their balance, and deepens their intuition. They become rooted, calm, unbothered. Their empathy evolves from reaction to reflection. People around them might not understand. They'll ask, "Why are you so quiet lately?" But they don't owe anyone an explanation, because solitude isn't loneliness, it's self-connection. It's the sacred space where they stop absorbing and start healing. When they finally emerge, they're different, grounded, clear, whole. Their energy no longer scatters, it radiates. Their empathy no longer depletes, it restores. Because the moment they turned their compassion inward, they stopped surviving and started recovering. That's the beauty of the Sigma Empath's evolution, when solitude becomes their sanctuary and self-empathy becomes their superpower. They no longer react to every emotion, they respond with awareness. They used to live in emotional motion, feeling every shift, every tension, every mood around them. If someone was upset, they felt it immediately. If the room was heavy, they carried it without thinking. But over time, they realized that reacting to every emotion was like trying to calm a storm by becoming part of it. So they learned to pause, to breathe, to observe the emotion before responding to it. That's when everything changed, when awareness replaced reaction. Now, when anger appears, they don't mirror it, they study it. When sadness approaches, they don't drown, they listen. They've discovered that emotions are messengers, not masters. Reacting used to drain their power, awareness now amplifies it. They no longer let their empathy pull them in every direction. They feel everything, but they choose what deserves a response. That's emotional maturity, the ability to stay still while everything else moves. This calm doesn't mean they're numb. It means they've become wise. They understand that reacting gives control away, but responding takes it back. So they've built space between stimulus and response, a sacred pause where clarity lives. And in that pause, they find power. They see emotions for what they are, energy in motion, temporary, fleeting, not truth. People around them notice the difference. The same empath who once absorbed every mood now feels untouchable. They don't snap under pressure. They don't spiral with others' chaos. Their peace becomes contagious, the kind that steadies a room instead of reflecting its noise. This shift doesn't happen overnight. It comes from countless moments of awareness, choosing stillness when triggered, choosing breath over reaction, choosing understanding over urgency. Every time they practice it, they grow stronger, more centered, more in control of their emotional world. Now they move through life like water, flowing, not forcing. They've learned that power isn't in how fast you feel, but in how calmly you understand. Because the empath who no longer reacts to everything becomes something rare, emotionally sovereign. That's the Sigma Empath's quiet evolution, when awareness becomes their anchor and reaction loses its power forever. Their calm energy becomes their shield, powerful, centered, and untouchable. There was a time when their calm was fragile, easily disrupted by noise, moods, and the emotions of others. But now it's different. Their calm isn't quietness anymore, it's armor. It's energy they've built through every drained moment, every emotional storm they've survived. They no longer absorb what doesn't belong to them. Instead, they radiate stability so strong that chaos can't reach it. Their calm has become their shield. This calm doesn't come from avoiding life, it comes from mastering it. They've learned that peace isn't found by escaping energy, but by controlling their own. When the world gets loud, they don't flinch. When emotions rise around them, they don't match the frequency, they lower it. Their presence regulates a room without a single word spoken. That's not weakness, that's emotional power in its purest form. People feel it instantly, that grounded, unshakable aura. Some find it comforting, others find it intimidating, but everyone feels it because when someone has made peace their default state, it changes the energy around them. You can't manipulate someone who doesn't react. You can't drain someone who's rooted. Their stillness reveals what's unstable in everyone else. They no longer chase being understood, they embody understanding. They no longer need to prove strength, their composure is strength. The same sensitivity that once overwhelmed them has now turned into quiet precision. They sense energy, but they decide what gets in. Their empathy no longer consumes them, it protects them. And this calm energy, it doesn't shout, it doesn't demand, it just is. Centered, powerful, untouchable. It's the kind of peace that's earned, not gifted. The kind that comes from surviving emotional storms and realizing nothing external can disturb what's mastered within. Now, their silence speaks louder than noise. Their stillness commands more than force. And their calm presence, it's not just a shield. It's proof that healing turns sensitivity into strength. Because once you learn to master your own energy, no one else can control it again. And that's the moment the energy shift becomes complete. When the empath stops absorbing and starts aligning. When they stop confusing noise for connection and realize that protecting their peace is the highest form of compassion. They still feel deeply, but now it's controlled. It's intentional. It's theirs. This is the evolution of the Sigma Empath. No longer the emotional sponge, but the calm presence everyone feels, yet no one can drain. Their energy doesn't chase, it attracts. Their silence doesn't hide emotion, it holds it. And that quiet strength, that grounded, centered stillness, becomes the proof that empathy was never their weakness. It was always their superpower. If you've made it this far, you're part of the rare ones, the empaths who've learned that peace doesn't mean you stop caring, it means you stop carrying what isn't yours. Before you go, make sure to subscribe to Brainy Empath, where we explore the hidden psychology, emotional depth, and spiritual strength behind empath transformation. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever reached that point where you stopped absorbing everyone's energy and finally felt free in your own? Comment protected energy below if you've learned that your peace isn't selfish, it's sacred.